So welcome to another video from me, Iqbal Malik. I work at Hammersmith Hospital in London at One Welbeck Heart Health and London Cardiovascular Clinic. The reason for interest in this case, it's a mitral valve in Valve TAVI, not aortic. And in addition, because of a very small esophagus, which meant that we could not place a transesophageal echocardiogram, we've used intracardiac echo to provide the transeptal puncture and ensure there's safety in the procedure. This was done at the Hammersmith Hospital in 2024, and that's me talking with my colleague Neil Raparelia and Adam Hartley. So the first part is to do a coronary angiogram. We can see she's already got a pacemaker, and angiography shows no significant disease in the left coronary artery. If we look carefully while we're doing it, we can also see the mitral valve in line, and then when we do the right coronary artery, we see the mitral valve en face. We're going to use those views later, but it's important to actually delineate them in advance so that we can see clearly where our valve is going to go. The challenge then is from the left groin to get the intracardiac echo up in the first place. We used a buddy wire to mark out where it was going because it would not pass up into the inferior vena cava, and even then we had to do an angiogram to be sure we knew where this catheter was actually going. In effect, it was finding a very early branch which allowed it to pass upwards into the same direction as the IVC, but actually not into the IVC. And obviously if we kept pushing, there'd be trauma, but once we knew that we were outside of the IVC, we were able to draw back the catheter much more distal and then start the whole passage again. And eventually, with some manipulation and the steerability of the catheter, we were able to get beyond these early branches and then up into the right atrium. The right atrium itself was very dilated, making our imaging challenging, but you can see even getting into the right atrium here was difficult, with some more contrast being required to allow us, even with the buddy wires, to pass in. Once we're there, then there's some manipulation to try and get the appropriate pictures on intracardiac echo. Here's the tricuspid valve being shown, and then as we twist again, the left ventricular outflow tract, probably the most important safety maneuver beyond the intraatrial septum. Here's the right ventricle, no fluid around it. And the aortic valve, which we're going to leave alone for today, but it has got mild aortic regurgitation on it. So once we've got these pipes up, I'm going to place a pigtail catheter across the aortic valve from the left femoral artery to give us hemodynamic information about the left ventricular outflow tract. And you can see there's a pressure line on the femoral artery and a pressure line in the LV showing no gradient. So now we have to do the transeptal puncture, which means we have to delineate the intraatrial septum, and getting the middle of the septum was quite challenging because of the size of her atrium, but eventually we've got, using diathermy, a good position for the puncture, and you'll be able to see some denting in the septum and the catheter passing into the left atrium from the right atrium. Then, using a slim wire, an 032 wire, I've placed it into the left upper pulmonary vein, and once I've taken the sheath upwards, I'll put an 035 stiffer wire in, so there's a buddy wire available. The next step is to dilate the intraatrial septum, because we need to pass the Edwards valve through, and the Edwards valve is going to get caught on that septum. So we are dilating with a 12mm Mustang balloon, having fully heparinized the patient. Then back onto the 032 wire, I'm placing the Agilis sheath. It won't pass on the 035 wire. The Agilis sheath is used because I can direct it towards the mitral valve and then easily direct my pigtail catheter into the ventricle. Remember, I'm being careful with all of this not to displace her pacing leads. She's got RA and RV pacing leads. She's pacing dependent. The pigtail catheter passing through like this, I think, makes it safe and unlikely to catch mitral valve apparatus as we go to the left ventricle. We're therefore then able to pass a safari wire through to be sure that we've got support for our valve going across the intraatrial septum through the mitral valve into position. You can see this generates quite a lot of arrhythmia as we push and pull. I've then removed the Agilis sheath. I've taken the bend off it, pulled it out of the leg. Remember, there's a sheathed buddy wire in the leg, and then this wire, in the Safari wire in the left ventricle, where our equipment is going to go through. The crossover point of the septum is where the two wires cross, and that's important because that's where the valve is likely to get stuck when we push in. Next step is to push in the Edwards sheath. The Edwards sheath has an Edwards logo. It does not matter what direction that logo is, but it does matter when we come to the balloon itself. So ignore the Edwards logo, put it in whichever way you like, take the dilator upwards. That's going to go through the intraatrial septum, and sometimes it passes easily across the mitral valve as well. In this case, that's not really happening. So we're going to deliver the Edwards sheath into the right atrium and then withdraw slowly the dilator introducer so that we're left with the sheath in position. Big flushes are needed at each stage to make sure there's no clot in the sheath. The crossover point again is visible where the intraatrial septum is, pointed out by the arrow. So we're now ready to place our mitral valve into position. So here's the Edwards logo. That has to face the floor and not the ceiling, because otherwise the bend will be in the wrong direction and you will not be able to steer it. So once you've got the valve up as far as it will go, the nose cone usually won't cross the septum very easily. You can pull back on the sheath to expose the valve, and the exposed valve can then be prepared by pulling the balloon in. The first part is done manually, and then, as you know, there's a rotational knob on the Edwards kit to draw in the top dot into the top of the valve, and the top dot is just about to arrive in the correct position, and there it is. Now that is now prepped fully, so we can now use the whole apparatus to push the valve across the intraatrial septum, across the mitral valve, and into position. Now, this is not so easy in many cases. Some people put a buddy Safari wire into the left ventricle. Some people use a sheath that's already in the left atrium. I've never found a time where I haven't managed to push this through, but sometimes it's required a buddy balloon on the other wire to assist it, because the rough edge of the Edwards valve catches on the septum. So I've angled it, I've twisted it, and I've jiggled it. And the jiggling, I think, is what helped it pop across. You can see we've got good hemodynamics. I'm measuring the aortic pressure. It's not being affected, but the jiggling has taken it over. Remember, the Edwards downwards logo means that I can steer it. I'm then lining up in areocranial. I've already found that angle with the valve in line, so I can position my valve. A vital step here is to take the pusher backwards. If you do not take the pusher backwards, when the balloon inflates, the valve will be spat into the left ventricle, which will not produce a good outcome. So the pusher is slowly taken back. So you can see that I've left about 30% of the valve in the left atrium and about 70% in the left ventricle. And that's important because that's where I want to end the valve. So now starts a very, very slow inflation. It's actually 2 or 3 minutes without rapid pacing. The hemodynamics are not affected at all. And as we slowly inflate, you can see the valve is not at the moment at 90 degrees to the native valve. The Edwards valve is probably pointing towards 2 o'clock, and it really should be pointing to about 5 o'clock. But it doesn't matter, because as the valve inflates, it'll pivot at the 6 o'clock position and start pointing downwards. And we can still see the mitral valve ring of the mitral valve replacement. So it's just about visible. I've got control of the Safari wire, and I've got control of the valve while someone else inflates slowly, so that I can position back and forth very easily. It's important to maintain good control, no panic, very slow inflation, because at the moment the hemodynamics have no issue at all. There is no change in the arterial pressure. Everyone is nice and calm in the room. There's no rush. I can still do small movements of the valve in and out, trying to achieve the 70-30 or 80-20 position. Once we've caught the valve at that bottom end, then we can be more rapid, because the pressure now starts to fall. Very important to lock the syringe and inflate fully. Hand pressure will not do. And occasionally I'll also double dip, so that we've deflated and we've inflated fully again, just to be sure we've pushed this valve out. The pressure recovers as soon as the balloon is deflated. Unlike the aortic valve, where if you inflated a balloon, then the ventricle will fail because it's trying to push against a closed valve. The ventricle is empty, and therefore there's absolutely no problem with having the pressure go down and recover quickly. So you can see that there's no left ventricular outflow tract gradient. We predicted that on 3 Mencio, so that's no surprise. And we've got flaring of the valve either side of the bottom of the mitral valve ring. So this valve is very secure. So we withdraw the balloon into the sheath and place a pigtail catheter, one to do hemodynamics if we hadn't done them already, but we already have, and two to safely withdraw the safari wire without damaging the leaflets of the new Edwards valve. So we've got good hemodynamics. We can see that very clearly, no left ventricular outflow tract gradient. We can withdraw the pigtail catheter safely and measure gradients if we wanted to, but we've got echo, and actually we decided not to crack this valve, although we could have done safely. And we've still got a buddy wire in the left upper pulmonary vein, which we can now remove. So on echo, there's no pericardial effusion. The mitral valve leaflets are opening. We can get a gradient across the valve. We can get a gradient across the left ventricular outflow tract. And we've now got a secure result from the procedure and a stable patient. So the final thing to do is, of course, to make sure our leg access is secure. There's a debate about whether we reverse the heparin or not. I don't usually reverse the heparin because these are more thrombotic situations. I seal the veins with proglides, the large puncture with 2, the small puncture with 1, and an angial seal in the arterial puncture. And of course check that the pacemaker is still working well. She's pace independent. We've had kit all over the right atrium, and we need to make sure that everything is good. So thank you for joining me. I look forward to speaking next time.